We've seen how over-reliance on trade with certain powers of the world has rendered us so fatally vulnerable that we are now dependent on their mood swings. They determine what happens on the African continent. And this is because we've allowed ourselves to fall into a trap of self-loathing, where we've hated not just ourselves but our neighbors on the African continent. We've refused, we've been reluctant to trade with each other, to see and recognize each other's worth. We've come to that point, that inflection point in our history, when we must recognize that we need each other. We need each other desperately as African countries, as Africans. We must
Now we have seen the effect of Ibrahim Traore sweeping across the African continent. We know that many African youths have been inspired by the boldness and how Ibrahim Traore has decided to really focus on ensuring that his people in Burkina Faso get the best they deserve as a people. He has said that the country's mineral resources will not be misused, as it has always been the norm over the years. He has also said that he wants to focus on uplifting everybody within that country and eliminate rebels and those who continue fighting against the people over the years. And this mindset has swept across Africa, and it is now in the southern part of Africa. We are now realizing that there are 3 countries who have decided that they will not operate with the arbitrary borders that were placed on them by Western people. That is Zambia, Namibia, and Botswana. They are saying that we have to come together and have a borderless alliance that will ensure our people move freely within these countries. It will ensure that we have free movement of goods, and it will also ensure that ideas can be passed from one country to another so that we have a united front within which our people can grow together. This unity is inspired by the union of the Sahel region, where countries came together in defiance of Western-backed ECOWAS to allow them pursue the dreams of people like Kwame Nkrumah, who desired a borderless Africa, one currency, one military, and one united political front. This is what Botswana, Zambia, and Namibia are doing right now. They've come together and they have said that they're going to work together to ensure that not just these 3 countries come together, but the entire of African continent. I can tell you that this is the reason why people like Colonel Muammar Gaddafi were eliminated by NATO. They did not want him speak about the dollarization of Africa and United States of Africa. Yet the leaders of these 3 countries have come together to ensure that this dream, a very elusive dream that was championed by Kwame Nkrumah, gets to be achieved. It is also in alignment with Africa 2063 agenda, which talks about having an African continental free trade area where the whole Africa will trade with itself and have a united borderless continent. While this has been the agenda of these 3 leaders, United States is not happy. They sent an envoy to Zambia, and their engagement, as we have always known, is not out of the desire to help African people. United States wants to have everything for itself. We know that these countries have very, very rare minerals that every other corporation wants to have. And therefore, if they are allowed to have this borderless alliance, then these countries will not continue depending on Western nations for assistance. They will have and they will leverage on their wealth of minerals to really sort out some of the challenges that they're continuing to face. So this really angered the United States, and they want this kind of unity to end, and to end very fast. I want you to take a listen to some of the clips about this issue that I've compiled together. Then we shall come back and share our thoughts at the end. Let's watch.
We gather here today as bearers of the flame, a flame handed to us by our forebears, who charted this path long before some of us could care or count, that relayed this flame across generations, handed it to us for us to steward, so we can hand it to generations yet to come. The voices of these forebears continue to echo through the tunnels of time as both inspiration and guide to all of us. They inspire, they spoke, they enacted examples, they pointed the way, they laid open a whole spectrum of possibilities, and were worthy guides to our region and to our continent. We recognize, we love them so. We appreciate the contribution that they made, one and all. I also appreciate the second addition to that worthy cohort of women presidents on the African continent, in particular our region, SADC region, as I warmly recognize the President of the Republic of Namibia. And thank the Namibian people for giving us this leader. I hope and trust that she brings a feminine touch, a touch of compassion and deep care to a region facing pressing, persistent, and trenchant challenges. I carry the responsibility of leading the country of Botswana, whose democracy faced its most serious test yet in the epic election of October 2024 that saw a party that had been in power for 58 years, certain of its success at the polls, assured of victory in every sense and respect, going into that election and losing spectacularly. Difficult moment that faced the then president. What would he do at that moment? Would he hand over peacefully and avoid strife and controversy? Or would he cling on to power and negate every tenet of democracy? That was the difficult question facing President Masisi of the Republic of Botswana on the 30th of October, the morning of the 1st of November. He had to make a call. He had to decide whether to plunge the country into chaos or to entrench its claims and cement its mettle and worth as a vibrant democracy. He made the call, and he handed over power peacefully, seamlessly. I am much in his debt for that brave and courageous decision that he took that fateful night. And he communicated in no uncertain terms. He said to me, the count is still on. It looks you are winning. I want to give you my solemn assurance that if it continues like this, I will readily concede. These are words we would like to hear uttered in similar circumstances across the breadth and dimensions of the African continent. And if there is no inspiration, let Botswana be your guiding star, and others who've trodden this path before us, so that we cement and entrench the democratic credentials of not just the Southern African tip of the African continent, but the rest of the continent. We have recast the contours of democracy in the democratic space. And so, there was no democratic malfunction. Let there be no democratic malfunction anywhere on the African continent. Let us focus our collective attention on wrestling with the challenges that bedevil our continent. We have seen when the rough winds of circumstance demonstrated to us the challenge that faces multilateralism in today's world. We have seen how over-reliance on trade with certain powers of the world has rendered us so fatally vulnerable that we are now dependent on their mood swings. They determine what happens on the African continent. And this is because we've allowed ourselves to fall into a trap of self-loathing, where we've hated not just ourselves but our neighbors on the African continent. We've refused, we've been reluctant to trade with each other, to see and recognize each other's worth. We've come to that point, that inflection point in our history, when we must recognize that we need each other. We need each other desperately as African countries, as Africans. We must reach out across barriers, across boundaries, across barricades, and find each other, and lean on each other, and hold each other by the hand as we strengthen, deepen intra-Africa trade. That's our only means of survival. We've spoken on this. There's been a lot of political rhetoric around these issues. We are at that point where words must now translate into tangible deliverables. Hundreds of thousands of our citizens across the breadth, the length of the African continent are still caught in the hellish death grip of poverty and unemployment. Africa is in distress. It is calling out to each and every one of us. That cry of distress is a call to the rescue. And we must rise here and now and into the future and respond to that cry of distress. And so we are here today to carve pathways from the inalterable circumstances of our existence with an appreciation that the institutions The ways in which we've organized ourselves, our routinized and our collectivized, our stylized modes of behavior must give way to transformative, radical, progressive ideas and actions. And with those few feeble words, let me exhort the whole SADC and indeed the whole of the African continent to action. Thank you so very much for the privilege of your coming here and the pleasure of your kind attention. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, on the onset, I would like to thank His Excellency Rajoelina, President of the Republic of Madagascar, and the people of this great nation for the warm welcome and hospitality accorded to our delegation since our arrival. For me personally, being in Madagascar, and in particular in Antananarivo, I'm back home. And once I stayed here during one, I can say, the best times in the history of this country. Coming back today, sincerely, I want to thank you, Your Excellency, when I have seen the progress in as far as development is concerned in this country. Congratulations and well done with your team. Today is my honor to attend and address my first SADC summit in my capacity as the President of the Republic of Namibia, being elected to this position in November 2024 and took office on the 21st of March 2025. I therefore brought you warm greetings from the people of Namibia, the land of the brave, to the people of Madagascar, and of course to the people of SADC. Your Majesty, Your Excellencies, this year will forever resonate in our history, marked by deep emotions and profound reflection when we bid farewell to our founding president, father of the Namibian nation, and leader of our revolution, His Excellency, Comrade Dr. Sam Safishuna Nujoma, who passed on the 8th February 2025. He steadfastly guided us through the bitter struggle for Namibia's liberation and independence, leading to our free and independent Namibia until his retirement in 2005. His dedication to the goals and vision of SADC was unwavering. Though his passing filled us with sadness, we found solace on the solidarity shown by our SADC colleagues during this time of mourning. I must therefore sincerely thank all of you for having stood by us during that difficult moment. We also pledge to uphold the profound legacy of His Excellency Dr. Sam Safishuna Nujoma and all our departed leaders for the region and the African continent, who dedicated their lives to the cause of freedom, unity, justice, and development. In the same vein, I extend our deepest condolence to the government and the people of the Republic of Zambia following the passing of His Excellency Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu, the 6th President of Zambia, on June 5, 2025. We also express our condolences to the government and the people of South Africa on the loss of His Excellency David Mabuza, former President of South Africa. Our condolence goes to His Majesty, King Moswati III, and the people of the Kingdom of Eswatini, following the passing of His Royal Highness, Princess Dlamini, former Prime Minister of Eswatini, and Senator Selemalena, former Deputy Prime Minister, who passed on the July 14, 2025. May their memories continue to inspire us, and may their legacies guide us towards peace, progress, and unity in our beloved region. Your Majesty, Your Excellencies, let me pledge my unwavering commitment to the goals and principles of our regional organization and the hopes and inspiration of our people. Together, we must join hands and work tirelessly to fulfill our fundamental responsibility to advance initiatives that promote sustainable development, foster economic growth, and address the pressing challenges we face as a region. Our collective efforts must always aim to improve the living condition of all our people across the SADC region. Namibia is deeply committed to the empowerment of women, and my presence here today stands as a testimony to that commitment. In recognizing the important role women play, not only in our society and homes, but also in shaping the future of our nation and the region. I urge all of us to rededicate ourselves to making the empowerment of women across our region a shining example for the rest of the world. In this spirit, Namibia has established the International Women Peace Center, a pioneering institution dedicated to the operationalization and the championing the pillars of the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325, adopted in October 2000 during Namibia's presidency of the Security Council. The International Women Peace Center seeks to promote peace, security, and the protection of women's rights in conflict and post-conflict situations, as well as advancing women's leadership in peace process. I therefore appeal to each member states for support and collaboration, encouraging our respective institutions to join hands with our International Women Peace Center. Together, we can strengthen the foundation of peace and empower women to be active agents of change through our region. Your Majesty, Your Excellencies, today we must also reaffirm a critical truth that the objectives of the Regional Indicative Strategic Development Plan 2020 to 2050 cannot be realized if our people continue to face socio-economic challenges such as high youth unemployment and food shortages. We must unite with urgency and compassion to ensure that food security is not just a goal on paper, but must be a reality in every home across our region. We must empower our youth to compete with their peers worldwide, particularly in the creative industry, science and technology, and innovation. Equally important is the compelling need to add value to our regional's raw materials before exporting them outside SADC. We need to put into operation the value chain programs that we have decided in this organization many years ago. By doing so, we will strengthen our economies, create jobs, retain more benefit from our natural resources, and build a better future of our people. We must also move towards industrialization to diversify our economies to benefit from the African continent free trade areas. However, Your Majesty, Your Excellencies, these aspirations cannot be realized without strengthening the infrastructures of peace, security, and good governance. Those elements are essential for sustainable and inclusive growth. We remain deeply concerned about the persistent security challenges in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. The ongoing instabilities threatens to reverse the hard-won development gains across the region. We must redouble our collective efforts and demonstrate a strong political will to ensure that peace prevails, particularly for the women and children of DRC. Who deserve nothing than safety and dignity. Without peace, there is no progress, no safety for families, no hope for our children, and no growth for our countries. And Africa and SADC will continue to remain in absolute poverty. I wish to express our profound gratitude to the brave men and women in uniform deployed on SADC mission in the DRC, who have done a commendable job that we must be proud of. Our condolence goes to the countries as well as to families who have lost their loved ones in the DRC. You have paid the highest sacrifice on our behalf. Your Majesty, Your Excellencies, we are here to recommit ourselves to the programs of SADC, and Namibia, under my leadership, will continue committed to ensure that SADC programs are implemented to the best of our ability and in the best interest of the SADC people. Thank you for your kind attention, and thank you for welcoming me in this body of ours, and happy SADC Day to all of us.
Now, after listening to the three leaders talk about the desire to have a united front in their countries, what is the essence of this unity? Why is this unity necessary? And is it really needed? Because we have had almost 54 countries in the African continent, and these countries operate within themselves. One thing that Western nations achieved, or the colonizers achieved for that matter, is that they were able to really have a disintegrated Africa where they are divided and therefore they cannot speak with one voice. That really made them have an easy way of entering any part of Africa, because they would have an alliance with one leader in one part of Africa without involvement of other people in the other parts of the African continent. They always say that when you want to make a quick deal, you need very few people in the table. And therefore, they are going to individual African countries, making concessions and agreements with them, and allowing mineral resources from those countries to be drawn without other parts of Africa talking or even opposing them. And that is how they ensure that the countries that we have, the borders that they created, the imaginary borders that they created, can work against the unity of African people. Looking at what is going on currently in the Sahel region and looking at what is going on in that southern part of Africa, I can tell you that when this unity succeeds and when these leaders start seeing the benefits of their unity, other parts of Africa will follow. And that is why the achievement of African Continental Free Trade Area and Agreement is very necessary. When this unity succeeds, all these other countries will come together and also work towards having a united front. And that is how Africa will get off of the dependency syndrome that it has had towards Western nations. They have always come to us speaking about how they are bringing aid to the African continent. They want to eradicate diseases. They want to eliminate poverty. But their main aim is not to eliminate poverty. They have never desired anything good for us. All they want is to draw our minerals, steal them from us, and have us continue begging them over the years without any positive thing coming out of our engagement with them. So is this unity necessary? Or is it something that is not supposed to be followed? Here are some of the reasons why I believe this alliance that is happening in Zambia and the southern part of Africa is very, very necessary. First of all, it is aimed at ensuring that there is economic integration and trade boost between these countries. And this can be emulated by other countries in the African continent so that we have an economic bloc of over 1.5 billion people that can really be used to leverage against poverty and economic disintegration that has always happened in the African continent. The borderless alliance between Zambia, Namibia, and Botswana is necessary to enhance economic integration by removing trade barriers and fostering a unified market. By combining their resources, diamonds, copper, and uranium, these countries can increase intra-African trade, reduce reliance on external markets, and align with the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. This strengthens their economies and sets a model for other African nations to collaborate, promoting continent-wide economic growth. Yes, economic integration and trade boosting is necessary. And if this unity succeeds, they can able to leverage on their very, very rare minerals that they have so that intra-African trade is boosted. I can tell you that if you look at the rate at which African countries trade with one another, it is way lower than how European countries trade with one another. European nations trade at almost 60% with one another. But when you come to Africa, it is less than 20%. So this tells you that there is still a lot of room for African nations to leverage on their populations and engage in a trade that is going to benefit the African people and make them achieve the very, very dreams that they have wanted to achieve over the years. Another reason for this unity is free movement of people and cultural unity. The alliance facilitates the free movement of people, goods, and ideas, breaking down colonial-era borders that divide ethnic groups like the Lozi and the Tswana. This fosters cultural unity and social cohesion, allowing citizens to travel, work, and invest across borders without restrictions. For Africa, this serves as a blueprint for dismantling artificial borders and boundaries, encouraging other regions to prioritize shared heritage and Pan-African identity. I can tell you this unity is something that is needed for the African continent. We have countries that are neighboring one another with the same communities that have been divided by the arbitrary borders that were created by Western nations. So when these borders are going to be eliminated, these communities will be able to interact with one another because they are the same community. If you go, for example, to East Africa, you'll find that there are certain communities that are found in almost every country within East Africa. You can go to Kenya and you'll find Maasais. Go to Tanzania, you'll find Maasais. Go to Uganda, you'll find Maasais. This unity is necessary. These countries were divided without consideration of ethnic composition that existed. And therefore, we as an African people, we must come together and support these leaders who are creating a borderless alliance. And this alliance is not just needed in this part of the continent alone. It is needed almost everywhere in the African continent so that we create a united front that cannot be destabilized easily by the Western nations, as they have always continued to benefit from our divisions. Another reason that supports this unity is resource sharing and development. The alliance enables shared access to critical resources such as water from the Zambezi River and infrastructures like the Walvis Bay, Ndola, Lubumbashi corridor. This cooperation drives sustainable development, addressing challenges like poverty and unemployment. For the continent, it demonstrates how resource pooling can accelerate development, encouraging other regions to collaborate on shared challenges like energy, water, and food scarcity. Africa has always suffered certain challenges over the years, and these challenges have always been recurrent. For example, looking at the water shortage in different countries. This has happened because we have neighboring countries who have this free resource, but because of the arbitrary borders that were created by Western nations, they cannot share these resources with other countries. And therefore, when we encourage this unity, we will be able to access very, very critical resources from neighboring countries. And therefore, this resource pooling will work towards ensuring that we have a shared infrastructural growth, a shared growth into our humanity, and also a shared existence between our communities. With this, we will also be able to have energy and infrastructural development fast-tracked to ensure that we are able to access different parts of our countries or our continent without any restrictions. Remember, as I've always discussed in this channel, you find that traveling from one African country to another African country becomes way expensive compared to traveling from an African country to European country. Why is this way? It is because of the fees that have always been charged, the underdevelopment within different countries, and therefore we are not able to access high quality transport services that some European countries have. And therefore, when we support this regional integration, we will be able to engage easily and effectively with one another without any challenge that can come from the borders that have always been created and that have always restricted our movement from one country to another. The final issue that I think is very necessary for this unity that is being seen in the southern part of Africa is catalyzing and support for Pan-Africanist ideals. The Zambia-Namibia-Botswana alliance is a significant step towards realizing Pan-African ideals of unity and self-determination. By prioritizing African solutions to African problems, it sets a precedent for other nations to pursue borderless cooperation. This could inspire a borderless movement across the continent, potentially leading to a more integrated, prosperous, and politically cohesive Africa, capable of addressing global challenges collectively. We saw during the COVID-19 pandemic when European nations marshaled resources together and they went to the market and bought all protective gears that were needed to fight against this virus. They also coalesced together and fought and did research towards finding the cure and vaccines that could help address the pandemic that had risen. Africa was left behind. And because this thing happened while we were seeing, it is just necessary that African countries come together, work towards a shared interest, so that at the moment when there is another pandemic that comes, Africa will be well prepared to address these kind of challenges. The World Health Organization that we have always depended on is not very, very responsive to the African needs. It is fast responding to those needs of the Western nations, and then at the end, we find that African issues are addressed at a later stage. So If African leaders can come and work towards a united front, they will be able to address African challenges without any obstacle. I believe I support this call by these three great nations of Africa to come together and work towards uniting each other and have free movement of people, ideas, and goods between their imaginary borders that were created by Western nations. This is a challenge to Tanzania that in recent days created a circular or a policy directive that was limiting other countries within the East African region from conducting specific businesses in their country. I think Tanzania must not allow itself to be used as a guinea pig for experiments that are unnecessary in the African continent. You can share your thoughts down in the comment section. And if you're watching us for the first time, please consider subscribing to the channel, like the video, and share. Thank you, and let's meet on the next one.